It's podcadzo.
Bro, do you remember Propels, dude? They're so good. Zero sugar, and
Every time.
they have a lot of
Look at
electrolytes.
DVRs. Yeah, I really like Propels.
7% sodium. You know, that's not bad, really.
I feel like I've had a Propel somewhat recently. It's a Gatorade product, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is my latest attempt at soda replacement.
Nice.
Because I never really liked Gatorade. I tried Prime because it was really cheap at Costco, and I wasn't a big fan of the Prime either. It had
That
this
doesn't
weird
feel like
aftertaste.
a good thing to replace soda with. That feels like kind of
Prime.
a lateral move, or perhaps even a demotion.
Well, health-wise, it is better than soda. Like,
are you sure?
mm-hmm.
Isn't it like that's an energy drink, right? It's
Prime Hydration.
Oh, word.
They
word.
make a hydration drink that's just like Gatorade
okay.
as well.
Gotcha.
There
I
is
thought it
the
was the
Prime
energy
drink, which no, I would not.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about.
Nothing's replacing my Celsius, baby. I'm still a Celsius guy. You know me through and through. Arctic vibe all the way. Peach vibe. Fantasy vibe.
I had to resist the urge to stop at a gas station and buy some, but I've been sleeping poorly lately again, so I didn't want to throw in an energy drink.
Again?
Yeah.
Like you were sleeping good and then you started sleeping badly again?
Yeah, I remember, I think I was talking about this when I got back from the Iceland trip. I had a couple weeks of just being real messed up.
And then it got better?
For about a week.
Okay.
And now it's...
That must have been a good week, though.
Yeah. Well, really only 4 days, actually. Just when I started feeling sick, I, made more of an effort to get good sleep then.
What's the matter? Like,
I don't know.
anxiety or
Probably.
too much caffeine?
That hasn't been... I thought that was maybe contributing, but I've cut back and it hasn't really made a difference. So I might as well stay with the caffeine. I should have gotten a Celsius.
You think your sleep schedule is just off?
I don't know. I'm trying. I'm going to bed at the right time, and
Yeah.
I've been waking up or trying to wake up earlier, or on sporadic days I'll wake up a lot earlier than I usually do intentionally. So that could be it.
Why?
Just because I have to get into the office sometimes now, and I like to try to work out before I go into the office and have a productive morning.
Okay, so it's not just ridiculously early for no reason.
No, depending on how you look at it.
Well, you're doing stuff.
Yeah,
you're not just laying. Yeah,
not just waking up to look at my phone for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well,
some people
that'd be
do that.
nice.
Some
look
people
at the
are
sun.
like, well, I don't have enough time to scroll Instagram during the day, so I just get up earlier in the morning to do it.
That's
it's
pretty
holy
wild.
Shit, that's crazy.
That's a pretty bad way to start.
It's
your day.
like cartoons, you know?
Yeah.
When you were a kid, you'd
True.
wake up at 7 so you could watch cartoons early in the morning before
I don't
everyone else
think
was awake.
cartoons have the same negative mental health impacts that
No,
social media
certainly
does.
not.
Yeah. I just found a YouTube channel actually that just plays 5 hours of 90s and early 2000s cartoons continuously. It's pretty cool.
That seems like
Throw it on in the
copyright
background.
infringement.
I don't know how they get away with it, but yeah.
Is it
I'll send
the
you the
Nickelodeon
link.
channel?
Nick, Cartoon Network, just classic cartoons that we loved as children.
Nice. That's cool. Makes me feel nostalgic. Makes me feel like times are changing and things are different now. Which is actually the perfect... it's the perfect secret segue into what we're talking about today.
Which is, I have
no idea.
No idea. I didn't even think to ask what we were going to talk about.
I'm not
going
to tell you right now. Anyway.
Okay. Well, it seems like you're about to because you said that was a good
but you were
segue.
going to say something else.
Well, I don't want to ruin the segue.
No, it's not.
No, I don't.
It's more of it's like a mental bridge that we're drawing. What I just said is going to come back to us
so
later.
We're laying the groundwork, if you will.
Laying the groundwork, I suppose. Getting the earworm in there.
Well, I was just going to say, I've been thinking about the passing of time more than I usually do, which also isn't very good for your mental health.
Things always just seem to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'll just spiral out about thinking about, for example, I saw a concert over the weekend, Vampire Weekend, at Dillon Amphitheater. I hesitate to bring it up because I don't want to even talk about it because we're going to have a sode in the near future where we talk about it. But anyways, I was just thinking...
about it. I'm not going to be on that episode.
There is in me and Connor.
Yes, Connor the Sandman will be back, and they'll talk about their lovely time at the shows. Their respective shows that they both got to go to.
Anyways,
I held it down. I went to the knuckleball show. Held up my end of the deal.
Were a choice. Like,
I was like, well, there's Vampire Weekend at Red Rocks, and there's knuckleball, and
or
JJ invited me to
Dylan
knuckleball.
Amphitheater
Ezra
the
Kanan
next
didn't
day, which is where you were
invite me
gonna
to the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but shut up.
See, this is why. This is why I hesitated to even bring it up.
It's
So
a sore
I knew
subject.
you were gonna. Yeah. But yeah, I was just thinking. Oh man, like I was at Dylan Amphitheater like last summer for National, and I was like, no, wait, that was 2 years ago. It's like what's
2 years
happened in
ago?
those 2 years? I think that was maybe that was last summer. No, that had to been 2 years ago. I know because I still had my long locks for that show because I saw a picture. It popped up in my memories, and I had long hair.
Oh, was last year?
I think that was August
they were,
2022.
Was last year the year that they were at Mission Ballroom? Because I saw them
Yes.
like last year or the year before.
Yeah. But anyways, it was just like, where has 2 years gone? That's significant. And what am I doing with my life? Making 58 episodes of a super good podcast. That's sick.
I mean, that's worth it.
Yeah. No,
Fills all the
I feel
gaps.
happy about that. Making some good music with Kadzo, I feel happy about that. But it's just like, it's disturbing to feel time passing that quickly. And then I like spiral out about it like, well, what's the point in doing anything at all? It's just, you know, the ceaseless marching on of time, the oppressive movement of the clock never stops. What are we here for?
But shouldn't that also make you feel that should also be like kind of a freeing aspect of life? Like none of it really matters.
No,
None
it's
of
just
it
when
matters
it's just
anyway,
when I
like,
start to think about it too much.
You think that we spend so much time thinking that the choices that we make and the decisions that we make and like
actually matter.
the places that we wind up and the reasons why we get to places, it's all like super important and like we overthink all of it. But then we make choices, good and bad, wrong and right, and then the world just continues to go on. Like none of the choices we make for ourselves really have a greater impact on anybody else, unless you're running for fucking president or like, I guess, political office of some kind. Then it kind of matters what you think, because then you are representing other people. But like, yeah, I could go outside right now and like kick my neighbor in the fucking shins and break his legs. And like, I could just come back home and keep podcasting and like probably nothing really would happen to me.
Probably not.
Or I could have someone come down here right now, like break both my legs while we're doing this podcast. It'd be awesome footage.
Yeah.
And then like nothing would really happen to them. Like their life would largely still be the fucking same if they came down here and broke my legs or not.
So that's another thing I've
So-
been thinking about with regards to time. And this might be hard to articulate, or maybe I will articulate it well and you'll just be like, you're a total dumbass. But obviously there are times in your life where it's like significant, where like there's a sequence of events happening and you look back at it and you're like, that was significant, that actually changed things and meant something.
But it's like a
And
handful of
that's-
things.
Exactly. That's like 2% of your life. The rest of the time is meaningless, and not in a negative way. It's just like it, you know, not meaningless. Like you're
We're
not
not
enjoying
really-
yourself. It
yeah.
it has no. It's going to be something you forget totally, never think about again. It's just totally benign. So it's like I've been thinking in my head, like, how do you know the difference between those things? And it's deeper than that. See, I'm not doing a job explaining it. But like
No,
the
but that's-
example of kicking your neighbor, it's like, will that be one of those things where it'll be like, wow, that was weird. I just went over and assaulted my neighbor. And like, that's kind of a fun story. Will it be
Now
like,
I'm thirsty
that
for
was
more.
the start of a horrible downward spiral in my
It
life?
could have been
Yeah.
without me knowing in the moment, sure.
And
Yeah.
I approach life with the seriousness of like everything means something will have
Yeah.
dire consequences, which is
Well,
definitely
that's
a problem of
a
mine.
little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Not necessarily dire consequences, but everything. Like, I know I just said nothing matters, but to a certain extent, all the choices that you make as an individual do matter because they will affect
Yeah.
you and how you live your life. So it's worth thinking about those decisions to like every extent. Like, obviously, all humans are going to think about stuff, but what's not fair is to like wind up busy or like to wind up like overly engaged with this weird little world that we've set up for ourselves where like we have to work and we have to like maintain certain aspects of our life in order to like feel quality. Like that's the part where it gets dangerous, because like you have the same worth regardless of like what money you make or what job you do or like what your house looks like or the things that you own. Like you have the same intrinsic value no matter what kind of shit is around you. And I think a lot of people wind up mixing in the stress of like being busy trying to maintain what they've got, and then that winds up leading to like valueless, because then it's like, what is this all for? Well, it's all for you. These are all the choices that you've made for yourself, and now you are facing the consequences of those choices. And they're not negative consequences, like they just have side effects. Like, you know, I wanted to have a car, so I bought a car. And it's awesome having a car, but now I have to pay for the car. So now every month I have to like make enough money to make sure that I can pay for the car if I want to keep the car. Like things like that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, then do I even want a car that badly? Because I don't really want to work that much. And, you know, a job is not who I am. Like, I'm not defined by the work that I do. I'm defined by the things that I do for fun, essentially.
It's Tyler Durden, bro. Fight Club. The things you own end up owning
you, dude. Yeah. Oh, speaking of, hi, Mazer.
Mazer. Hi.
What's up,
Guest
Mazer?
appearance by the Mazer Laser, the sweetest lady. Oh, you're so good.
She's
not
out and about all day.
You know. Oh, you had a wee day out, did you, Mazer?
She had a day out. So did Cypress, too. Cypress went to the vet today. Clean bill of health.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That must feel good.
Good fucking boy.
Yeah, but, you know, not to talk about my problems too much. I feel like I've been talking about my problems a lot.
What else is a podcast
for? Yeah, true. But what you just said resonated too. Like, I have that state of mind too, where like everything is just in a state of decay constantly, and it will fall apart unless I worry enough to hold it all together, you know, and expend enough energy.
At that point, you're just defining anxiety, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Or a type of anxiety.
Yeah. I just
it could be attributed to your OCD as well.
Some people, I think that's probably the bigger piece of it, because some people do have general anxiety and do let like things in their life fall apart. But yeah, I think my anxiety perhaps ramps up the OCD a little bit, so that's what I latch on to, is like keeping things the way I think they need to be intact. And
because that's all you can do. Like then it's just about, well, I can't control anything around me, so I'm just gonna overly control the things that I can touch.
Yeah.
Which also isn't bad, but yeah, it can get to a point where it's a little bit taxing mentally, because then you're just overthinking everything that you do. But
at least I like am at a point now where I recognize these patterns.
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
they
say,
are patterns, because I go in and out, and it's very much related to my mental health.
What's happening?
And before I used to give it a lot more weight and meaning, and now that I've lived this many years and have that much experience behind me, I'm like getting better at recognizing like, just chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
You've felt this way before. It will pass. It's all good. Things
come and go. And also, more importantly than that, like a lot of the time I feel that I'm not going to speak for you, but just people in general, like our mental health can be tied up in the state of the world.
Yeah.
And the state of the world right now is a fucking mess. So I think a lot of people like freak out about shit, and then they feel anxious, and then they're like, why do I feel anxious? And it's like, well, it's because the entire world is just constantly throwing shit at you, and most of it's pretty bad. And like it's just like, oh, today something crazy happened, another crazy thing happened, like a bunch of people are fucking fighting, a bunch of people are fucking dying, there's wars all over the place, like our political system is falling apart. Our neighbor, like people can't talk to their neighbors, like the world's getting smaller at the same time as it's getting bigger, and I think it just freaks a lot of people out.
And it has such a, like, speaking personally, but I think this applies for most people, when you're so in your head all the time and worrying about all the bullshit in your life, and then you know, see a news story about how fucked up things are, it sounds like it might be like, oh, okay, you know, my problems are small. There's bigger things going on in the world. I can chill a little bit. But for me, it's like, no, I'm worrying about so much of my life, and I have to worry about these things in my life. And there's things outside that I can't control, and they're going to like crush me in my tiny little life anyways, but I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. It almost makes you like overly empathetic, like too sensitive in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I feel about myself, is like if I have a lot going on and something is happening in the world that's bad, like COVID, for example, when COVID was going on and like the world was shutting down for everybody, I was really scared for myself, but then like the fear that everyone else was feeling was also making me feel like scared for them too. So then I was just like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
Like no one's trying to make anybody feel better. And that goes away with like better circumstances. Obviously, I think like the world's been a better place since COVID, like whether you want to believe it or not, like whether your political beliefs will allow you to admit the fact that the world is in a better place than it was when we were in a global pandemic. Like if you can't acknowledge that, you're fucked in the head, but that's a whole separate issue. Like the world's been a better place after COVID, and I feel like in a lot of ways COVID made me kind of reassess life in general and be like, well, as bad as things seem to be on the day-to-day, they could be a lot fucking worse. We could like lose the opportunity to go outside. We could lose the opportunity to see each other. We could lose the opportunity to, some of us could lose our jobs, like things like that. And it's all very scary. And so I think now I'm just kind of appreciating the fact that, well, the world's just doing what it's supposed to be doing. It kind of just clicked back into autopilot, it seems like, for the most part. And like now I think the global worldview and like the political system falling apart and stuff all just kind of seems like a fucking joke to me. It's kind of just like, well, no one saw this coming, which is hilarious because like I feel like some people for the entire time, like not only the entire time that Biden's been president, but like the entire time that Trump's been in like the political sphere, people have been saying like what's gonna happen, and it's like happening. So now it's kind of just like a laughable thing where it's, again, like, oh, people said this is going to happen, and now it's happening, and we can't seem to stop it, and, like, we brought ourselves here. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I just it makes me just worry more about myself and less about what's going on around me. So
I'm with you, brother. That's, like, the mindset I'm definitely trying to adapt. It sounds cliche, but I think it's really the only way to live, that everything does happen for a reason. And it's definitely easier said than done to actually think that way. But yeah, in my like healthier, more optimistic moments, I like really feel that like there has to be a plan to a plan, some cosmic plan. Because if there's not, then that's not a tenable way to live your life. To really think that this is all just chaos that's happening for no reason. Yeah. You can definitely logic yourself into believing that, but it doesn't benefit you or anybody else at all.
Right.
So you might as well think, no, there's a plan to this because there has to be, because I can't control it.
Yeah.
Or
because
no one can.
I mean, honestly, like at the end of the day, like, I don't know. We were put on this earth. Most simplistic terms possible, like we were put on this earth to like recreate and like pass our genes down. That's like the only, I think, inherent human like desire that there is like, I'm here, I'm gonna make more little me's to like keep this thing going.
Copies, yeah.
Like whether people admit, like, because that's just something that we inherit. Like a lot of people will say that they don't feel that desire or whatever, which is fine. But I think if we had nothing else, that would be like the only thing that we did focus on, was like, let's make more little humans to like keep our little clan going. And so I think that like what we were put on this earth to do is like hunt and eat and then sleep like 20 hours a day. Like not really do anything. And honestly, like if we were all put on this earth and like we didn't create the like global structure that we created to keep ourselves all mindlessly occupied with bullshit, I think there would just be like, and this sounds like slightly, I don't know, conspiracy-esque, but like there'd just be too many big thinkers and like global world leaders who are just like leading a charge of positivity and world peace and shit like this. And like the powers that be are threatened by the fact that humans are capable of being like a unified species, because then they don't get to control the masses, you know what I mean? And since like religion has established itself so early on in human history, like we've pretty much chose it really early on and then just decided this is what we're going with. Like we're choosing organizations to represent us and our moral beliefs and things like that. And then we just keep ourselves essentially just occupied with bullshit, i.e. having jobs, like paying bills, all this stuff that honestly doesn't really matter. And like, it's all fake, superficial shit
totally
that we created
arbitrary
for
system
our,
that we created that we treat as law. And
but if it wasn't that way, and we were all just sitting around, essentially being philosophers at life, then there would be not enough problems for like the powers that be to thrive on the chaos that is human life. So,
well, the whole like search for meaning thing, and you know, what's the meaning of life? And this is humans' problem in general, I think, is that we overthink things. Like, really, the meaning of life is pretty simple. There are biological mechanisms in us that give us feedback on what the meaning of life is, like things that make you feel good.
yeah.
It's, like having a family, being around the people you love, drinking water, eating food, getting rest, and sunlight. Like anything, that's the meaning of life. Like, do the things that make your body feel good and like send you a positive response. Whatever evolutionary force created us, or if there is a creator, like built that into us. Like, here's a feedback system for you guys so you know what the meaning of life is. Like, if it makes you feel good, that's the meaning of life. If it doesn't, it's not. And almost everything today that we occupy ourselves with is totally outside of, it's triggering those biological systems artificially, like getting a dopamine rush from like Instagram likes or something. And I'm not, this is well covered territory. Everyone knows the way we're living is fucked up, and that there's, ways out of it, but that's never gonna happen.
Yeah, it's like we're too far gone now as a collective, I guess, race, and we've like decided like this is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna be about. And I don't think if it did change now, it would only get more unstable. Like we're too far advanced now and too far past the point of like, well, let's just be like the cows and like roam the fields. Like, we're too obviously sophisticated to like be that now. Mm-hmm. But like the things that we could do, like just devaluing money and like, I don't know, maybe not even rebuilding, just changing certain parts of the political structure to like somewhat reflect today and be like current with what the world needs today, as opposed to like how the world ran 250 years ago.
Yeah.
Like small changes that we could make, I think we will never agree to make those changes as like a human species. And that's what like keeps me up at night, is like the fact that like there's so many things that we could just snap our fingers and make go away, and we'll never do that because some people just can't agree on how,
Well, and there's just too many people in power benefiting off of the way things are today, we have not gotten anywhere by accident. To totally contradict what I said earlier, I mean, obviously no one controls everything, but for most major aspects of modern life, there are people benefiting from the way things are who would never let it change.
And there are also the people that have more influence than the common man, and they can steer the compass in like the direction that they want it to go. So
have we totally buried the lead for a year?
A little bit.
There's gonna be a nice segue.
Right, so we're gonna
ultra deep.
We're going to step back a little bit and just keep it simple for the rest of this. No more existentialism, although it is nice. Like,
no, this is my favorite thing to talk about.
Not to say that like we're better than everybody else and all this shit, but like a lot of podcasts, especially these days, because everything is just oversaturated, which this will segue nicely.
There you go.
Because everything's just oversaturated, and everyone wants to have their turn at doing something. Like, I think a lot of crap bubbles to the surface, but then there's a lot of really good shit directly underneath the crap. And that's podcasts. Like a lot of podcasts I listen to, they're pretty much like a lot of podcasts these days are like done by YouTubers who have YouTube shows, and their podcast is just like the podcast version of their YouTube show. Like there's not really a change. It's all formulaic. You can predict what the episodes are going to be like and shit. So I think that this podcast is cool because people can turn it on and literally never know what the fuck they're going to get. Yeah. Is it going to be bullshit? Is it going to be me just bullying you for 45 minutes? Or is it going to be like, this week we're having an existential fucking crisis?
I mean, and that just speaks to our skill and versatility. Exactly. I'd put us up there with any podcaster in terms of our ability to just drive a conversation wherever we want it to go.
If we could monetize these episodes, we could do this full time. Yeah. We could release like 3 episodes a week. We would.
We work so hard for you guys. And then
we'd get cameras.
The amount of music that Podcadzo would be making too would be, so
the amount of quality.
How about a sponsorship, guys? Is that too much to ask for?
I want to be sponsored by like Porsche. Yeah. Send me a car. Send me like a 911.
Exclusively luxury Italian brands. That's what we want to be. Yes, I want to be sponsored by
Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo.
What is Rolex like? German or Swiss? Where's Rolex? Are they American? If they're American, I'm probably gonna look so fucking stupid.
Swiss.
Okay, Swiss.
I was gonna say Switzerland because I feel like
watches are like a Swiss thing.
Yeah,
which is weird. All right,
Switzerland's weird.
Here's the segue.
Okay.
You know this guy on YouTube named Rick Beato? Have you heard of Rick Beato?
Oh, yeah. Is that how you pronounce it? I always call him Rick Beato.
I thought it was Rick Beato for a long time. Yeah. It is Rick Beato. All right, let me just pull up his page real quick. So he is, for those who don't know, Rick Beato is a YouTuber who focuses on music. He is like a music commentator. He does a lot of stuff on his channel. Like, he basically...
Oh, we're going to have to send Connor that Third Eye Blind interview.
Okay. He does a lot of different things. He like interviews other musicians. He'll like do song analysis and stuff. He does like long form interviews, all sorts of different shit. He also just has like, because he's a YouTuber, a vlogger kind of, a lot of like YouTubers just do episodes where they kind of just like talk about the state of things and like talk about their feelings and stuff and like address their world and things like that. So 3 weeks ago, Rick Beato put out this video called "The Real Reason Why Music Is Getting Worse."
I haven't watched the video, but that was suggested to me on my timeline. So,
and I took analog style notes here because I wanted to do Rick Beato proud, prove to him that kids can still write with pen and paper and do nitty-gritty things. So basically what happened was he released this video. We can watch it. I'm not sure if you want to play it on the podcast or not. If we want to get sued by Rick Beato,
I'll watch it later.
Avoid it. But yeah, I summed it up very well for you here. So you can watch it later and let me know how I summed it up. But yeah, basically he released this 3 weeks ago. Fantano, who is a different YouTuber, responded to it, and basically he kind of summed up all the things that were wrong with what Rick Beato mentioned, and it sucks because like we were just talking about, if we were full-time YouTubers, this video would have been out a month ago. Like right when Rick Beato's came out, we would have been like, all right, it's the next day, we're responding to this.
In traditional Podcadzo fashion though, we're
about a month late, and it's because we only do this once a week, and we have plans, So now it's time to talk about this Rick Beato video, the real reason why music is getting worse. And I think, obviously, I'll get into the specifics, but I think just at the surface, looking at this dude's page, I'm sorry, you can't necessarily see the right thumbnails, but if I were to just pull up this video... What do you think off the rip? This video is titled "The Real Reason Why Music Is Getting Worse," and then it's this guy.
Rich old guy.
Lovely
painting. Nice hi-fi system.
Yes, very nice hi-fi system. He's got a lot of good equipment. But yeah, off the rip, you kind of
also wearing a denim shirt. So he's a man of the people.
He's accessible.
Yeah.
True.
Very crafty what he's doing here.
True.
The denim shirt's working against him, actually, in my opinion.
Why?
Because I think he's trying to manipulate me now. I would prefer if he were wearing a monocle
like
and
a suit?
tuxedo. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, basically
Keep
Rick
talking.
Beato decided to release this video to just address people about the music industry currently as it stands. And his argument is just that music is getting worse. Like, it seems like overall his opinion is music is getting worse. He doesn't specify like, oh, like hip hop's getting worse, pop's getting worse, rock's getting worse. He just says music is getting worse across the board, which I think if you're like an old white guy who looks like this and has a YouTube channel that talks about like why the Police are so good, or like that Smashing Pumpkins breakdown from 1999, like you're gonna have that opinion. You're gonna naturally think, well, music today is worse than it used to be. But his reasoning for it, his breakdowns are just honestly fucking insane in my opinion. So that's what we're gonna talk about. So this video is 12 minutes and 41 seconds long. It came out about 3 weeks ago. It's broken down to 2 acts of why music is getting worse. And so act 1 right here, music is too easy to make, is his thesis for part 1. Music is too easy to make. So he goes down kind of like memory lane a little bit, and he's like, you know, back in the 40s and 50s, Sinatra would...
When he was a young man.
When he was a little boy, Sinatra would get in front of an orchestra and sing into one microphone. Like, he would do a little warm-up, and they'd bounce the mic, and then he would fucking do a take, and that was all they needed to do. And then in the 60s, he talks about when multi-tracking comes into the picture, they would start obviously utilizing multi-tracking at large. And then he says, in 1998, auto-tune was introduced with Cher's Believe.
With Cher?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With Believe by Cher.
Yeah.
And that is what popularized auto-tune. So that's kind of his brief synopsis of things. In the 40s, you would sing into one mic for takes, and it would be good enough. The 60s, you would do 4-track multi-tracks, and that was what, you know, that was what you would use, call it a day. And then Cher all of a sudden brings auto-tune into the picture in 1998, and then everyone immediately starts cutting like vocal takes and fixing them in post, essentially. And then he said, and then after that, people started doing that with the drums. So people would do drum takes and then, you know, slide things over to make them be in time, or even do some sample replacement or things like that. Essentially just using drum tracks the same way that they would like patch in for vocal tracks. So then he said in the year 2000, one like Beat Detective and shit started coming out, and like people were quantizing drums and stuff. Like, basically good drummers disappeared. He literally says quantized drums are the same thing as a drum machine. Like, in his mind, there's no difference, which I think is a little fucking crazy off the rip. Like, I don't know. In my opinion, being a drummer, if you do a drum take and then like 99.9% of that drum take is fucking amazing, and then there's like one pretty noticeable flub that is just a human error, you're not any less of a musician for patching in and fixing one part of a track organically by yourself, like, or even fucking dubbing it over in the studio or whatever, like sample replacing it, whatever you need to do. Like, that doesn't make you less of a fucking musician. You still performed and came up with 100% of the music, you know. You still wrote it, and if you are lining everything up to the grid and you want to feel robotic, that's fine. That's your prerogative. That doesn't change the fact that you wrote the fucking music. Like, I don't know. I just think that's a little bit of a stretch. Like, quantized drums equal drum machine. Like, I just don't necessarily think that's the same thing. There's still a lot of human element to quantized drums. A lot of, like, the best drummers in the world at some point, even studio guys, they quantize their drums a little bit because they'd rather quantize a section of a song than do it like 10 times and wait for like the perfect take, because that's never gonna fucking happen. You know what I mean? Like,
so I think I understand the angle he's coming in at, but so far all those things are reasons why music would be getting better. We have the technology to fix music and make it recording music better.
Exactly.
And I just want to, I looked up this YouTube video just to see some of the comments. This guy's a real tool. He pinned his own comment at the start. The best way to counteract this alarming trend is by educating yourself and becoming a more knowledgeable musician so that great music can make a return. This is why I'm passionate about teaching and have created a comprehensive music learning course and software to support this process. So he's basically saying music is horrible. We can make it good again by you paying me money. Yeah, I am the only hope.
Yeah.
I have made this product to make music good again.
So by and large, he's the same as essentially the people that he's complaining about in this video. And we'll get into that more later. But then he goes on to say, by the year 2000, everyone's quantizing drums. He literally says, I quoted, session guys went away. He says, like, Josh Freese went away in 2000. Because of quantized drums. He was like, people could just get crappy ass studio drummers that could barely play, and then they would just quantize everything in post and fix it. Okay, did Josh Freese ever go away? Like, he's played on some of the biggest records that have been released in the last 25 years, and I'm pretty sure last time I checked, he's the drummer for one of the biggest rock bands, like, in the fucking world, like, not in the US, in the fucking world. Like, he's a touring drummer now because he spent the last 25 years being a session guy. Like, session drummers, session musicians in general never went away because of quantizing. Like, that's just such a fucking ignorant thing to say. I know so many people who, when I was growing up, they were learning how to use Pro Tools and they were learning how to quantize, and their dream was to be a session musician. Like, it doesn't add up. So then basically next he just says, after that, everything followed suit. So people started quantizing bass. People started fixing guitar in post. People were doing the same thing with vocals since 1998. So everything just turned into stale garbage at that point in around the year 2000. And then he kind of goes on like a side rant and says, I don't necessarily blame people for this because recording drums is just really hard. He's like, you need a lot of microphones, you need a good room, and training is required, he says. In order to be able to record drums, training is required. I know a bunch of people, and this is my side rant to that, I know a shitload of people who are like professional recording artists who never had a goddamn second of training in their life when it comes to drum recording specifically. They just figure it out as they go, and different things work for different people. And I think drums is one of the most like, there's like the most wide range of recording techniques for drums. You can do a bunch of different things and they all work. Like, you'll get good recording using multiple different techniques. It's not like, well, if you don't do it exactly this way, it's not going to sound good. And then he basically says, you could set up a bunch of mics, but if you're not in a treated room, if you're not in a professional studio, there's no point. It's just going to sound like shit.
False.
And my response to that is, well, yeah, we're sitting in my basement right now where we record all the Cadzo shit. I think we've gotten some studio quality recordings out of my fucking basement with good mics, and good mixing. Like,
and isn't it much more interesting to have everyone trying to figure it out and approaching it from different ways?
No.
How many?
Not according to him.
Yeah.
The video, I'm trying not to jump ahead too much, but the video essentially devolves into him saying music is worse because there's too many people making it, which I just straight up disagree with that as a notion and as a principle. Like, people making shit on their own, doing whatever they want on their own dime with no one else involved, is a beautiful fucking thing. It's the reason why Cadzo is a band. It's the reason why, like, so many bands that I know are bands is because people are just like, I'm just going to do my own fucking thing.
That's like against every artistic credo there is too, that like music should be less accessible.
Music should be reserved for the people that know what they're doing, is essentially
can
what
afford
he's
training
saying.
and have that access. And the only like, okay, sometimes I'm inclined to agree with the take he has, like in my more pessimistic moments, like, oh yeah, music sucks. Like,
well,
everything.
yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because we've been a podcast in the past that definitely shits on the current state of music.
Yeah.
But it's not because
But
of
we're
the
not
people
saying
making
music
the music
in general is getting worse. It's and
it's also not the artist's fault. If someone puts out something that's mediocre that they like, isn't that better than someone putting out something that's objectively really good that they like don't give a shit about? Like, isn't that the point of art? Like,
yeah, and like the only legitimate negative consequence to too many people making music is it's just much harder to
find the good shit.
Yeah. And for bands like us, it's insanely hard to get people to pay attention to what you're doing.
But it also, I think, widens the acceptable like barrier for what is good shit. Because like, if it was 30 years ago, what was good was decided by like a label executive exclusively. Like they would be like, well, this is going to sell well.
It doesn't even make sense from a logical perspective. Like, the more music people are making, that means,
It almost becomes easier to find it because, there's 10 million genres right now. If you want to listen to like some acid panty drop step, you just type that into Spotify, you get fucking 40 artists that you've never heard of before.
Well, and if it's like the best music is going to be the 1% of the music being made. In the 40s, that was like 1% of 30 songs that came out a month.
Exactly.
Now it's the 1% of 3 million.
Yeah, that's kind of folded into like one of my I made like a couple responses to his overall argument that I think just make it crumble at the seams. But like that's kind of one of them is like in the 40s and 50s when you're saying, if people liked something, they would go out and buy it. And that's how things kept going. It's like, well, in the 40s and 50s, people only knew about one fucking thing. It was like people liked Frank Sinatra because he was the only artist people knew about.
Yeah.
No one else got a fucking chance. That didn't make music better. That made music more generic, more repetitive. It made everyone want to rip off Frank Sinatra because he was like the only one that people knew about, like just to use that as an example. But anyway, to get back into it, he essentially says after that, because people just replace drum performances with samples and stuff, people essentially do the same thing with amps. With DAWs, they use amp modeling. And he literally said, amp modeling is easy and takes no creativity.
False.
In my experience, just doing shit with foreign words and like watching them track stuff, amp modeling is not fucking easy. It is a pain in the fucking dick to get shit to sound even halfway good.
I wish I had a fraction of the time I've spent fucking around with amp modelers back.
Like, forgive me if I'm wrong. When we reamp stuff for the Foreign Words album, they turn on their amps and everything's already preset how they want it and all their pedals are already good to go. Like, that's way easier than tracking into an amp modeler where you're constantly fighting to get even kind of close to the sound that you're trying to recreate, and using software that's constantly glitching out, constantly needs to be refreshed, constantly needs to be like re-updated, or you need to re-sign into something or buy a license for something. Like, it's not fucking easy, and it takes a lot of creativity to make the amp modeling in most DAWs sound like the way you would want your amp to sound in a room. Like, it takes a shitload of like ingenuity and fucking around with stuff.
I could I could see myself being on either side of the fence here, but I think generally, like, I have recorded a lot of stuff just through amp modelers and DAWs, and then I've also recorded a lot of stuff amping up or miking up my amp, and I spend way less time in the latter scenario.
Yeah.
Because I plug in my amp, I have 3 knobs.
Well, and you're already familiar with the equipment.
Enough.
It's like, if you turn a knob a certain way, you know exactly how the amp's going to react to that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that simple with amp modeling. Like, you can think that fucking with a knob is going to have the same effect that it does in real life, but then it just doesn't. Like, or it overtakes other things on the track. Like, it winds up requiring, I think, a lot more like mixing and finesse to make it seem lively and real. And not everyone's going for that. Like, there's entire genres of music like gent where like everything is amp modeled and digital, and like they want it to be as crisp and clean as possible, and like it sounds fucking great. Like, that doesn't make them worse musicians because that's the route that they want to go down. They're still professional musicians that do that.
And Rick Beato, nor any other fucker out there, would be able to tell you when something is played through a amp, an amp modeler
Sure.
well, or when it's played through an amp. No
Yeah.
one can tell the difference anymore.
Yeah, by the time it's all being compressed into oblivion and then released, it's all the same. Okay, so then next thing, I don't know why, he starts out in his studio here, like sitting in front of the camera, normal, and then for some reason he's all like, well, why are things the way they are? And then he just cuts to his patio, like he's just sitting in a chair, super close to the camera now, in his backyard.
His private
so I just felt like that was an important
too.
thing to comment on, because there's literally no need for this to be like a multi-shot, multi-cam thing. But all of a sudden we're in his backyard now. So he says, why is over-access to technology a bad thing? Number one, and this is a direct quote, creative dependence on technology limits the ability of people to innovate. I believe. I could be wrong about this. But he literally said...
Wait, that last bit is his too.
That's him too.
I could be wrong about
that's him too. Creative dependence on technology limits the ability of people to innovate. I believe. I could be wrong about this. But in my opinion... First of all, I don't know what creative dependence on technology means. I don't think anybody has creative dependence on technology other than that homie that can only record themselves straight into a DAW, like, because that's all the equipment they have is like one audio interface, one microphone, one computer. Like, they're going to rely on that tech. But that's the only real reliance on tech that I can think of. Like, no one is saying like, well, I don't have auto-tune, so I can't write a song, or like, I don't know. I don't really know what it means. No one that I know has ever been like, well, I want to write music, but I'm not gonna because like I feel like I don't have the tools that I need to like, or access to the tools that I need to do so. That
how do you define
technology limiting people's ability to innovate?
Yeah, that's just straight up insane.
It's done the 100% complete fucking opposite of that. Technology has only given people more and more tools to innovate.
It's like any other.
That's like saying, well,
the more technology.
Radiohead was better before they started fucking around with those keyboards and shit. It's like, bro, like, you really honestly think that people can't innovate because of an overabundance of technology that is easily accessible to them? Like, that's the opposite of what's happening. People are fucking around with gear now more than ever. And there's even a resurgence of old analog gear because there's a way to like reuse that old analog gear in a modern setting.
And how do you define dependence on technology?
I don't know what that means. I straight up don't know what that means.
John Lennon had a dependence on tape, you know.
He had a dependence on beating women.
All right, take it easy, guy.
Or one woman specifically.
Yeah, that's just.
It's just.
I don't understand the angle he's coming at here.
It's such an old school, and I feel like just outdated thing to say. Like, technology and people's access to technology has been why music has changed so much in the last 20 years. Like, the landscape around like pop music and everything is vastly different because people innovated with technology to like its fullest extent. Like, nobody's using like GarageBand. No one's using like the sample packs that come with their iPhones. Like, people are making their own sounds using the shit that they're given. Like,
does he make the point ever that like with technology it's easy to settle for good enough? Like,
kind of,
because I think that's a legitimate take to have, you know, like technology makes it so easy that you can kind of just settle for good enough, you know. Drag in a drum loop and be like, it's fine, I won't tweak it.
So point 2 of his is the like homogenization of music and like reliance on similar tools being used across the board creates like a lack of diversity. And then he kind of weirdly blames trap beats for that and is just like, you know, that's why we have trap beats, because everyone's just like, well, it works, so I'm just going to keep using the same old trap beat. But I've never heard any two trap beats be exactly the same. I think they're all pretty different. And then his third point is quality versus quantity. So he basically says easier access to recording makes it so people record too much and then they don't cut enough and they don't like single out enough crap from good shit, so they wind up releasing mostly crap and not very much good shit, and then it's harder to sort through and find the good shit, which I think kind of speaks to what you were saying a little bit. Like, it's pretty much the same point as like people are just making too much and then releasing too much.
Yeah.
But again, like, I don't think that's necessarily the artist's fault, because if you have everything that you need to record like a 20-song album and then you can release it on streaming services for $20, why would you not do that? Like, why would you not release everything that you have in the hopes that someone will like some random thing that you put out and it'll be like the next trending sound on TikTok or whatever? Like, I don't think that that is something you can blame the artists for. That's them reacting to
the ecosystem,
the world that's been set up
created.
for them.
Yeah, that's how, if I were to make a video called "The Real Reason Why Music Is Getting Worse," that's because
of Spotify.
Of our relation. Yeah, exactly. A relationship to content and everything is cheap now. But again, that's a small subset of fucking idiots who are just making, house music.
Sure.
To try to get Spotify streams or get like listed on playlists or something. That's,
which even those type of people, I would say, is in the minority.
Yeah.
And just because there's a shitload of music being released by people who aren't necessarily qualified professionals to release music, that's not the reason why music's getting worse overall. The reason why music could be perceived as getting worse overall is because the shit that's super popular that rises to the top is just mindless, repetitive bullshit, but that's not representative of most of what gets released by people. It really seems like he's just coming at like the laptop kids who are like making beats. And he's like, you guys are the reason why music is getting worse. But it's like no one pays attention to them. They might be oversaturating a little bit, but again, that's not their fault. They're doing the same thing that fucking everybody else is doing. And just because they don't put 3 mics on a fucking snare drum doesn't mean that they're not like as qualified to release things to the world. Like, I don't know. It's just a stupid and very conceited notion. So then he goes into this weird rant about AI replacement and basically is just saying like, record labels are going to start partnering with AI groups to recreate their artists, for the use of like recreation down the road, and then they'll own the rights to all of that AI, and it's a big scary thing because then the labels can just use artists' voices essentially without their permission because they have the rights to their voice already and shit like that. Which just seemed completely unrelated to what he was talking about up to that point, so I didn't really detail it too much, but he was basically just kind of giving a warning of, like, just be ready, like, and also, like, I told you so, like, I told everyone this was going to happen, that, like, AI is going to, like, replace
Rick
us.
Beato, a super smart guy.
So, yeah, that whole thing was weird.
The mayor of music.
And he referred to a video that he already made that's called "I Told You This Would Happen." And that video,
blows,
I didn't
dude.
watch the video, but that video is him basically just saying, like, I predicted the AI thing. And fuck you guys, I guess. There's nothing really more to it. So then part 2 of this video, if you'll remember, it's broken into acts. So act 1 was music is too easy to make. That was him coming at the laptop kids. Act 2 is music is too easy to consume, which I think falls a little bit more in line with
that's what we were just
your
getting at.
arguments, our arguments, I guess I'll say.
Yeah.
But he basically does this, and I won't make you watch it, but I will find it. He starts Act 2 with this super, super weird water analogy.
Water faucet in my kitchen. But imagine this is streaming on Spotify or Apple Music.
So here's his analogy, right? Spotify and streamers are a faucet. When you have Spotify, you just have this faucet that is always running, and everything you could ever want is in that faucet. He's literally like, he basically is just like the Beatles discography, the Led Zeppelin discography, the fucking Police discography. Like, they're all in this stream forever. And then when you take a glass of water from the stream, that like is the Led Zeppelin discography. And then as you listen to the albums, each water droplet is like one of their songs. So then afterwards, when you finish their discography, the glass is empty. All the water's gone. Holy shit. So his analogy is basically whether or not you're taking music from the streamer, it's always there. And if you don't take it, it's just getting recycled the same way that when you leave your tap running, the water goes down the drain and then goes to the sewage plant and then gets recycled. He's basically saying music is water, or streaming services are water, except...
I thought streaming services were faucets.
Streaming services were the water coming out of the faucet. Or I guess the streaming service is the faucet. It's a super weak analogy. But yeah, the streaming service, I guess, is the faucet. The water is all the music. So then, in this case, when the music doesn't get pulled when you're not listening to something, it's not getting recycled. It's just staying where it's at, and more music's being put on top of it. So essentially, he's just saying people are over-uploading to streamers, and it's causing music to not get noticed as quickly. Good music gets buried by shit. See if I got everything there. Oh, this is something he mentioned. So 100,000 new songs are added every day to streamers in 2023, which is more than one per second. And then he goes on the rant of compare that to when I was growing up. If you really wanted a record, you'd have to like save up your money and then go to the record store and then buy the record, and then you'd have to go back home and then you'd have to put the record on, which takes a shitload of work apparently, and then you have to listen to the whole
such
thing.
An old dude thing to say, but also has nothing to do with music being made.
No.
How's that?
He basically just says that because these days you want music, you just turn on the tap and then you have unlimited access to music, whereas back in the day, if you wanted something, you had to go get it and spend money on it. The sweat that you put into it is like the sweat equity. So then essentially, because people don't have to work to get their music anymore, the music itself has no value, is what he's arguing.
Yeah, which I agree with.
I don't think I agree with that though, because I don't think, like, if you told like a Gen Zer, like, hey, whatever streaming service you use, you're deleting it, you're canceling your membership, and you're not allowed to use streamers anymore, that person, I'm pretty sure, would freak the fuck out. They would be like...
Yeah, but it just...
And I'm pretty sure, like, when Apple released their, like, most popular apps last year, Spotify was in the top 10 for, like, the fucking 10th year in a row.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's, like, one of the more valued platforms that consumers have on their phones.
But it does change people's relationship to music. Music is cheap.
Yeah, it changes people's relationship to music in that it's cheaper to access, but that doesn't necessarily devalue it from a creative standpoint.
Yeah, not from a creative standpoint. And this is what I was going to get around to saying. What the point he's making again has not, in my opinion, has nothing to do with why music is getting worse.
Yeah.
But yes,
well, if he was
agree.
arguing from an actual monetary standpoint, like, yeah, artists are making less money, then I'd be like, yeah, I fucking agree with you. It's because of streamers. But what his approach is that music has devalued, not monetarily, but it's devalued artistically. Like, people don't care about quality as much because of the over access to whatever
that should
they have.
mean they care more about quality than ever. Because
they have to sort through the bullshit.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's kind of where my head's at there. That's why I think that's a moot point. But then he goes on to say, and he's back on his patio now. He went back inside, and now he's back on his patio.
He's like, I'm going to go waste some water for an analogy that makes no fucking sense.
He says, streamers are all available at a flat rate. And so when you pay like $10.99 for Apple Music monthly, you get unlimited access to all the artists. But because obviously they aren't thinking about all the artists at once when they pay for their monthly, it's devaluing all of the artists that they're not thinking about, I guess, at the time that they're paying for the subscription. That's the best that I could follow the logic. So essentially he's just like, you pay a flat rate for streamers, and then you could listen to something super old, or you could listen to something brand new. It doesn't really matter what you listen to, but whatever you're not listening to, you paid for, but you're not you're not actively engaging in it, so it's then devaluing itself, or you're devaluing it by not actively engaging in all of it across the board at the same time. Yeah.
But you didn't really pay for it because you're not streaming it, and therefore the streaming
you're
service
more like
is not
renting
giving
it,
any money
honestly.
to.
Yeah, you don't own
those artists.
shit
So you
when
don't
you're
know-
using a streamer.
Yeah.
You're renting it essentially for the month. And so that's why I feel like, a lot of people that I know, both people that are super into music and people that are just casual fans of music, they'll have their streamers, but then they'll also have their own collections. Like almost across the board, almost everyone I know, they have a small collection of shit that they own. That's the shit that they love. Like, you and me, we have record collections. I've got a CD collection. I've purchased albums that are on my phone forever. Like, they'll always be there, The artists that I truly like, those are the ones that I spend the money on. The ones that I listen to once every year or once every 2 years, I'm not going to keep their entire record collection at my fucking house. I'm not going to go spend $250 on 4 records that I'm almost never going to listen to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have a Spotify app so that when I feel like, I haven't listened to this album in 3 years, I'm going to throw it on once, call it a fucking day after that. Like, that's what Spotify's for. And a lot of people are using Spotify to build playlists and listen to the one song by that artist that they really like. Like, no one's listening to full albums anymore, which again isn't on the consumer. You can't blame the fucking consumer for that when the music industry has spent the last 25 years trying to turn the entire business into a single driven industry.
Yeah.
I don't know. None of it's the consumer's fault, in my opinion. But yet, in Rick Beato's mind, it's our fault. Both the people uploading shitty music to Spotify and then the people who listen to that shitty music instead of listening to good music on Spotify.
I guess we just need to take his music making course and then only release vinyl. And then we'll be good guys, huh?
And then he basically goes back again and is like, back in my day, we all had our collections. Like, we would bring records to show and tell. We would bring records to our friend's house, and we'd read the liner notes together, and that shit mattered.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
cool. Did you also grab a fucking German artillery gun from when you were in World War II? You old fuck. I couldn't remember the name of a German pistol. That would have been a way better joke.
And then, let's see. Oh, so then we're getting to the end of this video now. So basically he just says the best advice he can give, essentially, is just once or twice a week, listen to a couple songs without looking at your phone. He says he calls the phone the thought deletion device. So he says just don't look at your thought deletion device while listening to music. Listen to a couple songs a week. And don't do anything else. And just take the music in the way that you're supposed to take the music in. Just let it flow over you and let it be what it is.
The way
and
you're
don't get
supposed to
distracted
take it
by
in,
it.
as determined by me, the mayor of music,
And that's
Rick
what,
Beato.
in his opinion, I guess, fixes all of this.
I'm calling him Beato. Fuck this guy. I'm also just what a.
And then he says, for young people, at the end of the video, he said, for young people, try to experience music the way we used to. Which I just think is adorable, because I can fucking guarantee you, Rick Beato, that I enjoy my music now 10 times more than you enjoyed your music when you were my age. Because when you were 27, music sounded like fucking shit. Everyone was making rock music or ripping off R&B. Nobody put in a concerted effort to trying to be different or trying to push the envelope forward. Like, everyone just cared about releasing the next big hit, getting fucking famous, getting that record deal, because back in the day, that's what it meant. It's not like there was more artistic integrity in the fucking 70s than there is now. No, back in the 70s, 90% of bands that were famous because they fucking wanted a record deal from a label. They weren't like, we're just going to release what we want to release, and if people like it, they like it, and if they don't, that's fine too. Like, no, the goal was, we're going to be fucking famous. No one gave a shit about, is what we're doing different? Does what we're doing, like, sonically elevate the game at all? Like, no. Like, there was, like, 2 or 3 artists that really thought that way.
Well, I do think the 70s were maybe the best decade of music. But Rick Beato...
No, but as a concept, though...
No,
like,
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But when he was our age, I just did the research and the independent research and the mathematics to figure this out. It was 1989 when he was our age.
So, yeah.
Which was a pretty buff year for the late 80s into the early 90s was strange. But... that is the year Nirvana's first album was released, I think. There you go.
Cool.
I don't know the point I was going to make with that.
Okay, so then there's a second video that he released a couple days afterwards. This one's a lot shorter, but it's hilarious. So let's see. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. That's fine. But this video is... it's called I Know You're Mad, I'm Mad Too. And the thumbnail is him screaming at the sky.
Uh-huh.
So the point of this video is it's like addressing...
Old man yells at clouds.
It's some of him addressing comments from his previous video. So he opens up, he's basically like, look, guys, I know that you guys are mad about some of the stuff that I said. Let me show you why you're all fucking wrong and I'm still right. It's like a double down. So... the first comment he addresses is literally the comment of, well, you're just an old man talking about new music. Like, of course, you're not going to fucking like it. And his response to that is, I've had young people on my channel, dude. And then he lists, like, Matteo Mancuso, Mateus Asado, Mohini Day, and Tosin Abasi, who are all, like... virtuosos. Like, they're all like tappy fucking prog guitar legends, and then obviously Mohini Day is a legendary bass player, but like they're all like upper echelon, like super tappy technical guitar players essentially that he mentions, and he's like, I've had them all on my show, so clearly I care about like young people playing music. Like, none of these people play music the way that we used to play back in the day, and I still like them, so clearly I'm not an old man like that. Which is just so fucking stupid. It's like, he literally only listed people that he's had on his show that were like top tier musicians. Like, of course you're going to have them on your show because you're a guitar player and they're all like the best guitar players in the world. That means fucking nothing to me. So then he basically goes on another kind of little sub rant about how we're always discovering new things, and basically saying like, it doesn't matter if it was Bach or if it was, Charlie XCX, like, if it's new to you, it's new, and that's all that matters, is that you're discovering things that are new to you that you like. It doesn't matter what period of time it comes from, which doesn't necessarily seem super connected to this overall argument of like, you're an old man talking about new music, because he's basically trying to be like, well, I do like new music, but also like new to you is the same thing as new, so it doesn't really matter when it comes from, which is just, I don't know, it's fucking crazy. And then I made a note. At this point, he's yelling. Like, he's heated in this video. He comes on and he's like, I'm going to address some comments. And then he pretty much instantly just goes into like, I'm not an old man. Like, fuck you. Here's proof.
I know Sting personally.
Literally.
That seems like
and then, no, he goes on to be like, I'm the one doing the research. Like, I'm the one who knows the Spotify top 10. Like, do you know the Spotify top 10?
I'm the mayor of music.
I fucking doubt it. Like, I'm the one who's out here grinding, doing all this research for the people. And it's like, bro, did anyone ask you to do this? Did you start this YouTube channel because someone like held up a gun to your head and was like, if you don't let people know how you feel about the state of music, I'm going to fucking put one in your brain, bro? Like, no, you do this because you want to do this. You want some form of validation from others on the internet. So to say like, I'm the one out here doing the research. I'm the one who's putting in the time, putting in the reps. It's like, bro, you created this world for your fucking self. You could stop.
Yeah.
You could stop. It would be fine.
Please do.
And then, yeah, he circles back around to, I like new stuff. I like old stuff. I like everything in between. If it's new to you, it's new. Doesn't matter when it comes from. And then he says, you know, so cut it out with all this you're an old man crap. But he bleeps the word crap. And that's when I was like, oh, he is angry because he said the word crap and he bleeped
And he
it.
censored it. Because he's a numbers man and he knows that might mess with the algorithm.
Yeah. So then the next comment that he addresses is people saying that he's anti-technology. And he basically argues that by saying, that's ridiculous. I have a YouTube page with subscribers.
where I say bad things about technology.
He's like, I have a YouTube, so therefore I love technology.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to say, I edit videos using the latest video editing software. It's like, first of all,
It sounds like he might
you
have a
aren't editing
creative
jack
dependence
shit.
on it.
You've got some 21-year-old editing all your
an
shit
intern.
for you. And second of all,
turns.
I bet you if there was a way that you could use like a reel-to-reel fucking film camera to record all your shit and get it edited and released on YouTube, you would do that. And then you'd be like, well, my videos may look worse, but it's because I put in more work on them and I have more artistic integrity. It's fucking stupid. And then the next thing he says is he's basically just like, I'm more tech savvy than all the jokers in the fucking comments. He's like, I don't care how old you are, I'm more tech savvy than you. And I'm just like, okay, bro, so then you know that it's a pain in the fucking dick. Like, you're just like, oh, so if someone wants to make a hit album, all they got to do is fire up Pro Tools and fire up the first amp sim that they can find. And then 20 minutes later, they've got the fucking record of the year. Like, nah, dude, that shit's fucking hard. Like, you know it because you use it. Just admit that it's not as easy as you lead on as it is. Now I'm yelling.
So wait, sorry, do you have more points on this video?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I
So
won't
then-
derail you then.
He basically makes the argument that he likes technology. He just doesn't like people that use technology to cover up the fact that they suck. You know? People that aren't great songwriters, people that aren't great singers, people that aren't great drummers, people that aren't great guitarists, that just fix stuff in post. Those are the people that he's got the problem with. So basically, again, the argument comes back to if you're not a fucking bona fide professional who can only lay down the best takes, take after take,
Then you don't deserve
play
to
music,
make music.
literally.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Like, some of the best musicians that I know, Rick Beato, you're not going to believe this. I bet you Josh Freese has overdubbed drum parts before. I bet you he's fixed a snare in post. I bet you he's probably, like, copied and pasted fills before even.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, like, the best session drummer in the fucking world. Like, what are you saying, bro? It makes no fucking sense.
He seems like one of those dudes where, like, technical difficulty and proficiency equals goodness.
Yeah.
Like, if it's hard to play and
If you're a virtuoso
then
like Tosin
it's-
Abasi,
yeah,
then you're cool.
then it's good.
But
Everything
if
do
you
is good.
play wrong notes or if you fix yourself in post, you suck.
Yeah.
And you're part
If
of the
you don't
problem.
have
You shouldn't be
classical
releasing
training,
music on the
yeah.
internet. I've done... Okay, so, like, not to toot my own horn, there's been Kadzo songs where I've done an entire song in a take, like, start to finish. We're
For
not
sure.
chopping it into sections. We're not, like, taking it in multiple parts. Like, we're doing start to finish in a take, and then, like, halfway through the song, I fuck up for 2 beats or like 1 beat and it's noticeable. And we say that entire fucking take was amazing except for that one thing that got fucked up in the middle. Are we seriously less of musicians because we decided let's just take that 1 beat or 2 beats from a different take where I also played it correctly and just put the 2 together? Like, are we really worse for that? Like, should we just keep doing full takes on songs until it's perfect all the way through? Because fucking spoiler alert, it's never going to be. And you could be Josh Freese. you're never going to play a perfect take all the way fucking through. Like, there's legends of people where it's like, yeah, I did this song in one take. But that doesn't include the fact that you guys did go back and fix shit in post. Like, you dragged one snare note over, you lined up one hi-hat note with the grid. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. You fucking did it. So I guess that means the entire take is garbage now. I don't know. It's just such a stupid and outdated way of thinking.
Yeah. I don't even know why he had to bring that into the discourse of this argument. It really feels like truly a moot point.
It's while he's trying to address the fact that he doesn't hate technology. It's like, well, it certainly seems like you hate the fact that technology can make people seem better than they are, which if they came up with the idea and they still performed the idea themselves, if they got a little help fixing it in post, like, why does it fucking matter? They still had an original idea. They still came up with something on their own. Like, it doesn't devalue fucking anything, in my opinion. Okay, so then his next point, or I guess not even his next point, but kind of just like his argument in this video for like his proof that music is devalued and that it has less meaning to people than it used to is literally, so he says people just don't care about music anymore, and I have the proof. I have the statistical data to prove it. And then he says, look at Google searches. The year 2004, people Googling music, it's 100%. In 2004, 100% people are Googling the word music. In the year 2024, it goes down to 25%.
Which is
only 25% of the
now people know what music is. That's a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, the top comment on that video was like, who the fuck is Googling music? So then he goes on to say, well, maybe because most people listen to pop music, that's where it is. So then he checks on Google Trends for pop music searches, and he's like, that's bad. And then he's like, well, what about hip hop? And then he Googles that, and he's like, that's really bad. Like, people are just not Googling it all anymore. And then he's like, country music in the U.S., because obviously that's where people listen to it. That's where people are excited about it. And then he's like, well, country music's down 50% on Google searches. And then he literally says, this is, again, a direct quote at the end of it, I guess people don't care about art or music. Because people aren't fucking Googling music.
He's got to just be trolling for the likes of this.
Okay, not so. I said Fantano did one of these response videos, and the most the thing that I took from the Fantano video the most that seems maybe like plagiarism. So sorry, Fantano, is that Fantano read out all the shit about the Google searches, and he was just like, bro, this is so fucking stupid. Yeah. But that's the only takeaway that there can be from that is like, bro, that's so fucking stupid. In the year 2024, if you're Googling music on a computer, it's because you're fucking 90 and you don't know how to find Spotify.
I think Rick Beato's obviously a pretty intelligent guy. There's no way he thinks that's actually a logical and good argument, sound argument.
I think in his anger, because he's still pretty angry when this is going on.
Yeah.
And his kind of like delusion of this whole argument that he's making, he's just doubling down and really trying to take anything he can take to be like, this is proof that I'm right. Rather than just being like, oh, I could have been wrong. Because like he literally says in the first video, like in that section about technology, people not being able to innovate because there's too much technology. He's literally like, well, I could be wrong. Like, I don't know. Maybe I am wrong, but I really don't think I am. It's like, no, dude, you literally fucking are. Mm-hmm. And rather than doubling down on this bullshit, just be like, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know?
In the insane pressure that's on me to endlessly produce content that no one really wants.
Yeah.
I've scrambled and put together a half-thought-out video on why
sorry
music's
guys,
getting worse.
We can't dissect Led Zeppelin 2 this week again.
Yeah,
because
because I have entire playlists on that. Yeah.
Okay, so then he rounds this whole thing up at the end and kind of just says, you know, he also mentions for a sec people aren't Googling video games as much as they were back in the day either. So he says... Kids aren't Googling music and kids aren't Googling video games. because those things take too much work to do. They're just Googling social media instead, because all you have to do on social media is doom scroll. You don't have to do anything or be engaged in anything. So he says kids aren't Googling video games because video games are too much work for kids these days.
His obsession with Google is hilarious.
Bro,
I really don't understand what he's trying to say.
I'm trying to think of a single kid that I know under the age of 18 or around the age of 18 that isn't a fucking gamer. Like, everyone that I know that is that age was born on a fucking iPad and games 25/8. Like,
and to go back to the country music thing, that's just a ridiculous point to make too, because everyone is in agreement that country music is back. This is the biggest country music has been since the 90s. Like,
and maybe people aren't Googling it because, they already know what it is. They already know who's popular. They already know who they like in the genre. Like, because they're not Googling it means that they don't like it. Well, that's honestly the most, out of all the arguments that he makes on both of the videos, that's the most ridiculous one. It's just like, if you actually think that that is statistical proof that people don't care about music, then you're fucked in the head. Like,
I think it must be he's just savvy and knows that that's an easy thing to latch on to. Be like, this guy thinks that Google holds any water here, like, and he knows that will just help with the channel. I think he's just...
Yeah, well, he pretty much ends it by being like, well, I'm right. Like, whether you want to admit it or not, I'm right. So fuck you. Spend less time on social media. And he also makes this weird point about, he's like, I have a lot of friends who are music teachers, and I ask them all the time, like, do your students practice when they're not in lessons, like throughout the week when they're at home just living their lives? Do they ever practice? And the answer, like 100% of the time, is no.
No, they're playing video games, which
aren't
somehow they've
practicing.
found without Googling.
Well, I just wanted to mention, when I was growing up and when I was doing drum lessons as a kid, I never fucking practiced. At least, I never practiced what I was supposed to. I just did whatever the fuck I wanted. That's never changed. And like, I taught music for almost 4 years to kids. They never practiced. This was 2016, 2017. It's been a minute. Kids were different back then. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the notion that kids don't value music, and it's also proved by the fact that they don't practice in between guitar lessons or piano lessons.
Yeah, it's a universal. It's
always been that way.
Yeah,
it's. You think Jimi Hendrix took guitar lessons, motherfucker? You think Jimmy Page played fucking guitar lessons?
Spent hours playing scales.
Yeah. Do you think that the Edge ever took a single lesson? And if he did, do you think that he would have gone home and been like, well, I'm just going to do what my guitar teacher told me to do? Fuck no. Yeah. Like, no one's ever been that way.
But, I mean, maybe he means, like, are they playing music at all in their free... Because everyone we've cited, and us too, even though we're not practicing the way Rick Beato, I'm sure, practiced, meticulously playing diminished scales and stuff. We still played music, but...
Weekly, sure.
Yeah.
I play Podcadzo songs 1 year here.
Yeah, but when we were kids, like, even though we weren't like practicing lessons, we were still playing guitar all the time and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's always going to be kids that are doing that. Like, there's always going to be kids that are playing on their own and doing their own thing.
Yeah. And those are the kids that are going to...
They're not practicing what they're supposed to practice from their lesson or whatever. Uh-huh. And they're also spending some time on the fucking computer, I can tell you that too.
Yeah.
They're not locked in a dungeon with a piano just, oh, master, may I please have some porridge while I play the piano? Like, no. They're all on the computer. They're all fucking being kids, doing what kids do. Like, just because they're not 100% devoted to the thing that you want them to be 100% devoted to doesn't mean that they don't value it or that it's just globally valued less. Like, the takeaway from this being that music is valued less now than it ever was, I just can't get behind that. I just can't agree with that. Like, yes, artists are the least paid that they've ever been. Artists are the least represented that they've ever been. Artists have the hardest chance and the least amount of resources to actually make it and be sustainable now compared to the past. But I've never met anyone that's just like, well, I just don't give a shit about music. But like in the fucking 40s, I guarantee you there's fucking bitches everywhere that were just like, well, I don't really fuck with music because like they didn't have a record player. They couldn't afford to go get records. They didn't know who to like because there was nothing out there that was like, this is who's popular. This is who's good. Like,
yeah. Well, I think it's just proportionally the same to like the same proportion of society then was just like basic dudes who
it
like,
just wasn't reported.
oh,
back
I'll just
then.
buy a Frank Sinatra LP because that's the popular thing to do nowadays, and you know I need to keep up with the Joneses.
But then
and
think
have
about it,
music.
like-
and that's like there are many people proportionally now who be like, I don't really care about music, but I'll need a Spotify because just need something to fill background noise.
See, but that's the thing. I've met, not to generalize, but I've met a bunch of like old people who are literally just like, yeah, I never really got into music because when I was growing up, like records costed a shitload of money and record systems costed a shitload of money, and I just never had the chance to really get into music. But like these days, ask someone 20 years old, 18-year-old, like, hey, like, what's your favorite artist? What are your top 5 favorite artists? Like, I guarantee you almost all of them have a fucking answer.
Yeah.
Like, they all intrinsically know that they have access to music at a way more easy level than someone from the 40s, 50s, 60s.
Most of them, it's going to be cool, weird, left field shit that Rick Beato would call
Has never
bad
heard about
music.
it. Trap beats.
Yeah.
All the trap beats are the fucking same.
But it means a lot to that kid.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It's, yeah.
The value of it hasn't gone down for that specific reason. Like,
Yeah.
just because there's a shitload more of it, there's also a shitload more people out in the world than there were in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. So, like, maybe there's just more shit because people are demanding more shit. Maybe we have 10,000 different genres now because people over the years have been like, well, 9,999 genres just isn't enough for me. Like, I want a little bit more. That exploration, that continued evolution of like releasing stuff and then like readdressing the state of it and like updating it and releasing it again, like that's in my mind proof that people do give a shit about music and that they never did stop giving a shit about music. Like think about TikTok. Like TikTok made a Kate Bush song popular. Like people saw TikToks where that song was in the background and they liked that song so much that it had its own revival.
Yeah.
Like, how does that not prove that people give a shit about music that is new, that is old, that is across the board, just like different varieties? Like, it happened with Kate Bush. It's happened with, I can't think of other specifics, but it's happened with a bunch of like old music.
Yeah.
It's happened with Creed. Like,
Yeah,
who would have
is-
thought that Creed
yeah.
would be popular again 15 years after the fact because of social media? Like, people heard it on TikTok and then they're like, that song fucking rips. And then they added it to their fucking Spotify playlists. Like, that's a great thing. Like, that keeps the culture kind of alive. And it, in my mind, proves that people do give a shit about good art. They don't care when it's from. It doesn't have to be brand new. It doesn't have to be made on a fucking laptop. It doesn't have to be quantized. Like, people like it if it's good.
All right, bro. We should wrap this one up.
Fuck you, Rick Beato.
I won't be watching the video. I said I would, but you did such an excellent job of summarizing, and I already feel angry about his take, so I won't put myself through that. But thanks for taking such detailed notes, Julian, for driving the sode.
You're welcome.
Thanks to the
Fuck you, Rick
listeners of
Beato.
podcadzo. Yeah, Rick Beato.
I don't actually have that strong of an opinion against Rick Beato. I think some of the videos he releases are cool. I just think that if you are going to be... I wrote down here, he's 62. At the end of the video, he says, He pretty much just says, like, I'm not out of touch. Like, I'm only 62. Like, I'm young. And then he also is kind of like, I've got a 27-year-old dude working the camera right now. Like, hey, there's a young dude here. Like, he kind of just starts doing that type of weird shit. But basically the summary of the whole end of the video of him trying to be like, I'm not an old man, like I'm still hip, I'm still cool, I just don't like bad music that is too easy to release and is too easy to access. And it's like, well, that in itself makes you sound really like categorically old as fuck, because who are you to decide for everybody what's bad? And who are you to decide for everybody what's worth being released and what's worth being on streamers? Yeah. And then, fuck. Oh, at the end, I think he does try to cop out slightly and say, you know, the point of the last video was really to address modern pop music. So he kind of does at the very, very end of the second video go back and be like, just so you guys know, I was talking about pop music specifically.
Should have mentioned
which, up to that point, not a specific word of pop music once. Yeah. It's literally the entire time. It's an umbrella. And then at the very end, he's like, oh, by the way, I was talking about pop music, you guys. Which even that is fucking bullshit. Like, people care about pop music now more than they ever have.
And Brett is obviously the crowning achievement.
Well,
of all
but also
pop
like
music.
Taylor Swift. Like,
yeah,
whether or not you like Taylor Swift, like Taylor Swift is like the modern day equivalent of the fucking Beatles. Like, there hasn't been a movement that big in fucking 25, 30 years, and like. People hold her to a very high standard because she releases quality art. Like, again, that should be proof that people give a shit. Like, if she puts out something bad, people are like, oh, hey, this wasn't the best. Like, and then when she puts out something good, people are like, oh my God, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
People care. You know? It's out there.
Yeah. Well, Rick Beato, you're welcome on if you want to defend yourself. Thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.
Goodbye.